Organization is a key concept throughout modern society. Whenever two or more people get together to accomplish anything, the first thing they do is to get organized. They organize time, resources, or plans. And it's basically the same procedure when large groups of people in government or industry come together to accomplish goals or to produce a product. As a supervisor or manager, you practice organization by assigning different aspects of tasks to different individuals, or by setting up a system for combining the efforts of the workers in an effective manner. When supervisors set up relationships between people, resources, and work, they're practicing organization. They're responsible for making sure that goals are accomplished and that everyone understands what to do and why. Whenever all parts are present in some order, organization exists, but efficient organization exists only when the parts are arranged in a productive relationship. Traditional discussions of organization has focused on four major areas. First, span of control. 2, structure. 3, division of work. And 4, delegation. We'll use these four topics to efficiently organize our discussion of organization and to simplify and to categorize the elements of classical organization theory. First, let's look at span of control. This refers to the number of workers actually reporting to one supervisor. Classical theory imposed some strict limits on the span because every supervisor possesses only so much knowledge, energy, and time. Today, however, it's a different ball game. The only thing I can say with certainty is that you'll usually find the span greater at the bottom of the organization. This is because more people can be successfully supervised at lower levels because their tasks are usually more repetitive and less creative than at higher levels. Now, you may be wondering how many employees make a good optimum number to be supervised. The Conference Board provides some guidelines for determining the number of employees any one person can effectively supervise under given conditions. First is the competence of the superior and the subordinates. 2, the amount of interaction between the subordinates. 3, the amount of time that the supervisor must be away from the work area. 4, the similarity of activities being supervised. 5, the incidence of new problems in the supervisor's unit. 6, the degree of standardized procedures within the organization. And finally, the degree of physical distance between the activities of employees. The supervisor's skill in the unique situation will ultimately determine the number of employees he or she can manage effectively.
As you have just learned, 7 factors are used to determine how many employees can be effectively supervised by one person. As you consider them and their span of control, decide whether you think the number of people is appropriate in each situation.
The next foundation of organization, clearly seen on an organization chart, is called structure, the functions, position, and chain of command existing within an organization. Departmentalization is one of the major components of any organization structure. Essentially, it means how are the workers divided. To answer that question in modern business, there are 5 major ways to departmentalize employees. That's by function, product line, type of customer, geographic area, and finally the process or type of equipment being used. Another component of structure is the level of authority, which leads us again to the chain of command. Although the supervisor usually occupies the lowest organizational level of authority, able to delegate responsibility, it's especially important to realize the necessity of that firing line manager who communicates the final instruction to begin each task, then maintains production or operational schedules until the job's done. Organizational size is the final aspect of structure to be considered. Usually larger companies experience lower employee satisfaction and higher absenteeism. On the other hand, in smaller organizations, an employee can establish relationships with coworkers more easily. He or she can also see the results of their efforts and better understand how they relate to the total operation. Now let's look at the third foundation of organization, division of work. Even in prehistoric times, this process was in use when some members of a tribe hunted, some planted crops, and others made pots or weapons. A few served as leaders. From these earliest days, people have realized that division of labor leads to specialization and is a more efficient way to increase productivity. But there are advantages as well as disadvantages to specialization. Economists who studied early examples of manufacturing discovered 3 reasons why dividing the work seemed to increase production. First, a worker's skill increased by concentrating on a particular task. Second, no time was lost in shifting from one task to another. Finally, division of labor encourages the invention and use of specialized machinery capable of greatly increasing production. Recently, however, behavioral scientists have begun to criticize the classical division of labor. If a person repeats the same operation with monotonous regularity day after day, they lose interest in the work and can't relate to the job or to the final product. And because they can't deviate from that prescribed way of completing a task, there's no opportunity for creativity to improve the product or to increase production. Some organizations have developed some special strategies to combat both the social and psychological problems caused by division of labor. Among these are job enlargement, job rotation, and participation in decision-making. All of these have proved to be effective. Job enlargement structures the production process so that each worker performs several steps. Workers must be more highly trained, but they suffer less from boredom. Many companies have found efficiency increased and morale rose while workers perform several different operations rather than a single mechanical task. Another popular strategy is job rotation. This involves periodically moving a worker from one job assignment to another. People who shift jobs have less opportunities to become bored and disinterested with what they're doing, and they're better able to grasp the total picture of the company's operation and their role in it. But job rotation has some disadvantages as well. Considerable retraining may be required to enable the employee to change tasks. Workers may come to feel that just as they develop a skill at a particular job, the company moves them on to something else. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, informal work groups which arise whenever people work together are constantly being disrupted. These interruptions can diminish employee morale and may offset the gains made by decreasing boredom. One of the most successful strategies is the participation approach. This allows employees to participate in decisions that affect them and their jobs. In this strategy, authority is redistributed and moved down. Companies which employ this approach reason that people are more likely to accept decisions they've helped make. Some companies have even set up employee committees to make decisions relating to job design, salary, promotion, retirement plans, as well as complaint and appeal procedures. Naturally, this approach assumes that supervisors are willing to relinquish some of their authority in order to gain increased employee satisfaction through participation.
To review, think again about the 4 aspects of division of work. They are specialization, job enlargement, job rotation, and participation. In the scene that follows, you will see some aspect of each in these approaches. Be prepared to evaluate how well they are working.
Okay, can we get started now? I'm really anxious to get on with this. As many of you know, I've been meeting with a lot of you separately and individually over the last couple of days. We're having this little group meeting here this morning, and this afternoon I'm going to meet the other half of the group. I've been aware for a long time that there have been some problems with productivity and with morale here in this division, and I really want to get to the bottom of it. A lot of you have been very, very helpful in our private meetings, and it's my hope that we'll be able to get something together here that will really serve to help us all get things on the right track in this department.
Marv, we haven't had much of a chance to talk amongst ourselves about this. What are some of the issues that you've come up with while you were talking with us?
Well, I guess the ones that have come to the surface most often, I've made a list of up here on this board. The first one up here that came up most often is that there was too much checking and too close in the personal supervision. A lot of people felt that their jobs were very routine and that they were doing the same thing all day long with no change, and that was getting them down. Some people felt that they were losing skills because they were specializing too tightly on one job. A lot of people felt that they didn't have a chance to move ahead and that they were stuck, and chances of advancement were stymied. And there were quite a few complaints, too, about those of you who felt you'd like to talk more with the customers and have more customer comment. Now, these are the ones that I've gotten in our private meetings. Is there anything else anybody can add?
Yes. I might as well bring this up now that we're talking about this other stuff. Sam and I have been here longer than anyone else, and it really burns us up when new people come in and they make the same money that we do, and they have the same title. I mean, we get no recognition for our longer service here, and it isn't right. I mean, why should we work harder? Why should we try harder? It's like we have no reason to. We have no motivation to. You agree with me, don't you, Sam?
Yeah, that's about it. Of course, there's not much you can do about it, Marv. It would take an act of God to change something as basic as that.
Well, let's not be so sure here. What do you say we add that to the list at least, Sam, okay? We'll call it salary and level. Salary and level. And the complaint is no difference. Is that about it, Jan?
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Whew. You know, when I asked you to open up to me and tell me what was bothering you here, I had no idea we'd come up with all this. I really have to say that the time that I've spent down here has opened my eyes to a lot of the problems and a lot of the things that you're facing. And I think it's really important that we work together and try and come up with some creative, constructive solutions that are going to work better for you and for me, for all of our sakes.
We would have talked to you about this sooner, but quite frankly, Marvin, we didn't think that we would get any response. And besides that, you've been extremely busy since you've come in here.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I have been busy. I've been busy supervising up here. As a matter of fact, that's something that has come up very often, the fact that I'm hounding you too much.
Okay. I know for a fact that my work has not been up to standards, but I have been so turned off by these other issues for so long. I mean, if there could be some way to remedy this situation, I'm sure that we would be a lot more motivated about our work, and you would have no complaints about our productivity, quality or quantity-wise.
One of my biggest complaints here is how specialized we've gotten.
Yes.
I mean, one of us
Yes.
does all the titration tests. Another one of us is doing all the blood samples. And here lately, I've done absolutely nothing but frozen sections.
Not only is it boring, but I'm losing all my proficiency in other areas, too. I mean, is there some way that we can find new methods of assigning work so we get a little variety?
Problem? I don't see any problem, any reason why we couldn't. If we could all get together and work out a system so that we all wouldn't be tripping all over each other getting to the machinery.
Yeah, that system would be very nice. Another thing, I would like to talk to the researchers firsthand and find out about the test circumstances and what the results are for. I think it would make the work a lot more interesting.
Oh, wait a minute, Jan. That could get to be a real royal pain. I mean, every time that one of the researchers came in, we would just have to drop everything we were doing and talk to them.
Yeah, I guess so. But I don't know. I would still like to have some contact with the real person I'm working for, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
There is something I'd like to offer you, though. I would like to propose to you that you have complete personal authority and responsibility for supervising all your own work. Now, what that means is that you would have the authority and responsibility to check over all your reports and clear them before you turn them over to the customers. What do you think about that?
That's only going to hold us up more. I mean, it takes time to do all that paper checking.
Yeah, but it'd be
It's
worth
the
it
only
in
way to
long
do
run.
it.
Do you trust us, Marvin?
Well, yeah. Yeah, I really want to trust you, but it's not my decision. It's up to you. What do you say? Do you hear agreement?
Let's give it a try.
Let's try it.
Okay, good. Now, let's check some of the things here. Review some of the things we covered this morning. Jan, would you drop by the office about 3 this afternoon?
3? Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
good. Okay, we've covered the fact that we have...
Marvin was taking a great risk in having the meetings he is now conducting. After hearing your employees' complaints, what other courses of action could you have taken if you were in Marvin's shoes? What would be the pros and cons of those methods?
Now let's turn our attention to one final component of good organization, The process of delegation. Delegation is an important supervisory skill, but it's one that's often abused. Though supervisors are responsible for many jobs, they cannot and should not attempt to do every one of those jobs. In reality, supervisors who take their jobs seriously are often unwilling to trust the people below them to do their jobs competently. When a supervisor tells an employee to do a particular job, he or she must be willing to let go and trust the worker to accomplish the job satisfactorily. Employees will often complain, "My boss wants me to do the job, but won't give me the authority I need to do it." Now, both sides of that statement must be understood if the supervisor is to delegate effectively. First, the boss should provide employees with adequate authority to complete their task. But on the other hand, the supervisor is ultimately responsible for the acts of subordinates. Whatever happens, the supervisor will get praise or blame from higher-ups in the company. Responsibility is the obligation to account for what's been done. Authority provides the power to act officially within the scope of delegation. In delegating a job, the supervisor is telling the employee, "I trust you to get the job done. Your actions and even your mistakes will be acceptable to me. I'm willing to take responsibility for your acts, and in return, I expect you to do your job well." That type of clear-cut communication must be established between the supervisor and employee at the beginning of any delegation process. Then both can avoid serious misunderstandings. This whole communication issue leads us into some personal characteristics that seem to be common to supervisors who delegate effectively. The first is receptiveness. These model supervisors are open to suggestions and are willing to give other people's ideas a chance. They allow employees to think creatively and welcome feedback on job improvement ideas. The second is a willingness to let go. They aren't afraid to give decision-making power to subordinates. They trust workers to do their jobs in the best way they can without constant supervision. Next is a willingness to let others make mistakes. They're patient with workers and think of them as human beings, not as gods or as machines. Though they expect some mistakes, they don't hover over the workers like nervous hens. The fourth characteristic is a willingness to trust subordinates. These supervisors know that if they can't trust their subordinates, they might as well start trading them to the competition. Finally, there's a willingness to use broad controls. They stay in touch. They keep the communication lines open. They're available when employees need help, but they resist that temptation to take the job back and do it personally. Teddy Roosevelt summed up the essence of delegation when he said, "The best executive is one who has enough sense to pick good people to do what he wants done, and self-restraint enough to keep from meddling while they do it." To sum up, every time a task is delegated, the importance of communication grows. If good reporting and feedback channels are established, work can be accomplished across departmental lines as well as within departments. As long as everyone knows who's supposed to do what and how well they're doing, delegation can serve as a useful tool for you and your employees.
In our final scene, it's 3 o'clock the same day, and Janet is arriving at Marvin's office. Marv has decided to delegate an important task to her. As you watch, be prepared to identify the effective and/or ineffective methods he uses in his delegation process.
Marv?
Hi, Janet, sit down. Still plowing through some ideas from the meeting. How do you think it went?
Well, it's a start anyway. I'm going to wait and see. I hope you won't be like others in the past.
How do you mean that?
Well, quite frankly, Marv, this is not the first time that we've all met together to discuss problems and then make plans to improve problems, and then for some reason or another, it never happens. Now, that's the worst morale killer of all.
I know. I've been down that road myself a couple of times, Janet. But I really feel like after meeting with you people and talking with you, I'm getting a firm grasp on the cause of some of the problems here and how important it is that I work with you to find solutions. I know it may not all happen overnight, but
Well, as long as we know that something's happening, that's what really matters.
And I'm sure that the minute something doesn't happen, you'll be the first one to let me know, won't you? You know, seriously, Janet, you are kind of an informal group leader here. You've been here longer than most people, and I need your opinion on an idea.
My opinion? Sure.
Well, you know, you brought up in the meeting the problem you had with new people coming into the company, their
Yes.
salaries and titles.
Yes, yes, that's been a sore point for a real long time, Marv.
Okay, well, this may take a lot of work, but I think if we approach this thing right, we might be able to do something about it.
Oh, I've heard that before.
Come on, now hear me out. Here's my idea. I propose to create an entry-level position here at the company for new employees, like an apprenticeship or, a trainee position. And then maybe 2 other levels with appropriate salary increases.
That's not bad.
I'm glad you like it, because I'm going to need your help to see it through.
My help? How?
Well, we need to prepare a proposal to present to the personnel director, something outlining the problem and the basic steps that we're going to take to handle it. Something that would outline, say, the job requirements and the levels of advancement.
It should probably include a list of job duties, too.
Good idea. Now, I know it's going to take a lot of research, but you probably have some friends in the business who work with different companies in similar capacities, or maybe you belong to an organization and you could talk it up and get information.
Oh, sure, that's a great place to start. You know, this may take more than 5 pages.
Hey, fine. The stronger our ammunition, the better our chance to win.
Okay, Marv, if I were to take this on, when would you want it?
Well, first off, I wouldn't like to dump too heavy a load on you. Take you away from your job too long, Janet. Say, an hour or so a day max. The budget committee meets at the end of the quarter. I'd like to have it to present to them so that we can get this thing online for the new budget next year. Could you have a rough draft for me in 1 month? What do you think?
I'll do it. Now, a month at this point sounds okay, but I really won't know till I get started. What I'd like to do is in 3 weeks give you an outline for you to check, and then I'll start on the draft.
We really shouldn't take that long before we touch base. Let's not have that long an interval. Let's check in with each other, say, once a week, and that way if you need some help with some rough spots, I can pitch in, or we can get the people down in personnel to help.
How do you think this is going to fly down in personnel?
They already know about it.
Oh?
Yeah. Just before you came in, I had them on the telephone, and I outlined the proposal to them, and they are very positive about it. And now it's up to us to get the hard facts together and develop that proposal.
This is a big deal, Marv. It's going to affect all of us.
You're right, Janet, but I have a lot of confidence and faith in your ability. It'll be a heavy load for a while, but if I can do anything to help, let me know.
Okay, I will. Thanks, Marv.
Sure.
You know, I've got to admit, we were all pretty skeptical about you when you first came aboard. I mean, due to the fact that you've never had direct experience with this kind of lab and your background, if you know what I mean. But you're not so bad, Marv. I think things are going to work out just fine.
Well, I have had a long way to go, and I still have a lot to learn. But I appreciate it. Thanks, Janet.
Thank you.
As you followed Marvin during his delegation process, what were the positive things he did and said? What aspects of delegation could he have improved upon? Delegation is probably one of the most important foundations of management, one which every one of us could do more of and do better. As we bring today's session to a close, think back on the scene with Marvin we just saw, where Marvin did a pretty decent job of delegating. Once more turn to your guide and complete the exercises and applications, and we'll see you again soon.